The wind cut across the training ground, carrying the stench of dust, sweat, and iron discipline. I remember that day vividly. On the parade square, rows of hardened men stood tall, their boots digging into the dirt. And at the far end of the line, one figure did not belong. A woman. Hair tied back, uniform too neat, a scar running across her cheek like a reminder of some silent war. She stood upright, shoulders squared, but the eyes around her were merciless. Is this a training camp or a beauty contest? One soldier laughed, his voice echoing. The others burst out in crude chuckles. Another spat on the ground, shaking his head. A broken doll in our ranks? She'll drag us all down. Have you ever seen it? A moment where a single human being becomes the target of every sneer, every whisper, every cruel laugh, where one scar, one silence, is enough to erase their worth before they've even spoken. I've seen it. And in that moment, standing on that brutal ground, I wanted to shout back for her. But she stayed silent. The commander approached, his stare colder than steel. "You don't belong here," he said flatly. "This is no place for the weak." She didn't answer. She inhaled once, deeply, keeping her back straight, eyes forward. That silence wasn't fragile, it was defiant. Yet her refusal to respond only fueled the scorn. "Deadweight," someone muttered. "A puppet on parade," another sneered. I scanned their faces, merciless, dismissive, blind. They didn't care what she had endured or why she had walked into this furnace of men. All they saw was a scar and a silence, and that was enough to condemn her. But I noticed something they didn't. In her eyes, beneath that still surface, burned something else. Not fear, not hesitation. Something like a fire banked, waiting. Have you ever seen a person stand in the middle of ridicule unmoved, not because they cannot fight back, but because they know the time to reveal their truth has not yet come? The mockery continued, echoing off the barracks. She stood rooted, gloved hand curling slowly into a fist, as though she was gripping a storm she refused to release. That silence, agonizing, heavy, was not weakness. It was the kind of silence that waits, that judges, that threatens. And then I felt it myself, the question rising not from pity, but from curiosity. Not, can she endure this? But why? Why is she here? Why would someone like her, mocked, unwanted, choose to step onto this soil, into this crucible? The laughter faded, leaving only that scar, that silence, and one question that no one dared say aloud, but every eye screamed. But why would someone like her appear here at all? The days that followed were merciless. Training began before dawn, drills that would crush even seasoned soldiers. Mud, weight, punishment, every hour meant to break the body until only steel remained. And through it all, she was the shadow at the end of the line. The men didn't let her forget it. "Keep up, doll. Careful you don't snap in half." Every stumble, every drop of sweat was magnified, mocked, thrown back at her. I watched her closely. She never answered, never barked back. She simply endured. To them, that silence meant surrender. To me, it began to mean something else. There was a rhythm to her endurance, a calculation in her stillness. But the torment did not stop. During live-fire drills, one recruit whispered, "Hope she doesn't shoot herself." During endurance runs, another jeered, "The scar's the only battle she's ever seen." And yet, she never broke stride. Every night, while the others laughed or collapsed into sleep, she stayed awake. I caught glimpses of her alone in the dim barracks light, not praying, not weeping, training. Small, meticulous movements with her hands, her breathing steady, her eyes fixed as if on an enemy no one else could see. It was then I noticed the scar. Not just a wound, but an old one, faded but precise. The kind you don't get from accidents. The kind carved in survival. And her movements, the way she stripped her weapon faster than most, how her posture and cover was too refined for a recruit. These were not accidents. These were fragments of something varied. But no one else saw it. They saw only weakness. One morning, the squad was ordered through a brutal obstacle course, rope climbs, mud pits, barbed wire. The men charged, loud, aggressive. She moved differently, silent, efficient. She didn't rush. She didn't stumble. Her body flowed through the course with a precision that should have been impossible for someone unworthy. Still, they mocked. Too slow, they cried, even though she had wasted no movement, even though she emerged from the mud with eyes unblinking, lungs calm. They couldn't see it. They didn't want to. But I saw the detail they missed. The way she tied the knot in her rope, military standard, used only in specialized units. The way she placed her foot on the barbed wire, avoiding the weak point that would collapse under weight. Tiny things. Things no ordinary recruit would know. And then came the moment that silenced even me. During a weapons test, one recruit fumbled, nearly dropped his rifle with the chamber still hot. In a blur, she moved. Not panicked, not clumsy, fluid. She caught the weapon, ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, and set it down. Not a wasted second. The men stared, confused. The commander narrowed his eyes. She said nothing. She only returned to her place in line, her scar glistening faintly under the sun. The whispers began. They couldn't deny what they saw, but they refused to understand it. Lucky reflexes. Beginner's luck. Anything but the truth. Because the truth was terrifying, the silence they mocked was not emptiness, it was control. The scar they sneered at was not weakness, it was history. And the calm they mistook for fear was something else entirely. But no one dared admit it. Not yet. Still, the signs grew louder. Her footwork in drills was too sharp. Her breathing in combat simulations was too measured. Her eyes scanned every field as if she had walked those grounds before. And then came the detail, the single moment, that made the entire squad go silent. During a coded exercise, the unit was tasked with transmitting coordinates under pressure. The others fumbled with the cipher. She, without looking at the sheet, recited the correct sequence. Her voice was low, precise, flawless. A code used only in operations classified beyond their reach. The men froze. The commander's jaw tightened. No one spoke. For the first time, she had revealed not just endurance, not just reflexes, but knowledge. Knowledge she was never supposed to have. And as the silence thickened, one thought gripped us all. If she wasn't who they thought she was, then who was she? And so the question shifted, the laughter died, and all that remained was unease. Because a small detail had shattered their certainty. And with that single detail, the squad fell silent. And then, one small sign made the entire unit hold its breath. From that day, the air around her changed. The men still whispered, but their laughter faltered. They no longer mocked with the same confidence. Because deep down, they had seen it, the glimpse of something far greater than they understood. The commander began watching her more closely. His eyes lingered during drills, measuring, testing. He assigned her heavier packs, longer runs, harsher drills. She carried them all in silence. Not once did she collapse. Not once did she complain. And then, slowly, the truth began to surface. During a marksmanship test, the recruits lined up at the range. One by one, they fired, missing targets, grazing edges, proud of their mediocre scores. She stepped forward last. Her movements were deliberate. Calm hands, steady breath. Bang. Dead center. Bang. Dead center. Bang. Dead center. Not once did the barrel waver. Her grouping was tighter than even the instructors. The field went quiet. A skill like that is not born in weeks of training. It is forged in years of unseen battles. Still, she did not boast. She simply set the weapon down, eyes lowered, as if she had revealed nothing at all. But the silence spoke louder than any words. Hope flickered not just in her, but in the few who dared to believe she was more than what the others said. And then came the survival drill. The recruits were dumped in hostile terrain with nothing but a knife and a canteen. Most panicked. Most stumbled, wasting energy, making noise. She disappeared. Silent. Untraceable. When the team regrouped at the extraction point, she was already there, seated in the shade, a small fire burning, traps set, water purified. The others arrived ragged, panting, bleeding from thorns. She watched them with calm eyes, as if she had been waiting for hours. And maybe she had. That was when I felt it most clearly. This wasn't chance. This wasn't luck. She carried with her the muscle memory of something hidden, something classified. Her scar, once ridiculed, now drew different questions. Where had she earned it? What unit had taught her knots, codes, weapons, and silence? But she would not say. She moved like a shadow, answered with nods, kept her past buried. Yet with each test, each trial, the truth became undeniable. One night, during a sudden ambush simulation, the recruits scattered, disoriented in the chaos. Shots echoed in the dark. Panic rose. But her voice cut through the night, low, sharp, commanding. Left flank. Hold. They obeyed, without even knowing why. And under her direction, the recruits regrouped, pressed forward, and secured the field faster than any squad before them. For the first time, the men who had laughed at her followed her. And in their silence, in the grudging awe creeping into their eyes, there was something else, hope. Because if someone they had spat on could rise this way, then maybe they too could endure, could become more than they were. But they hadn't seen everything. Not yet. Because every skill, every secret, every scar she had shown was only a fragment of the storm inside her. The true revelation, the real fire, was waiting for the final test. And until then, no one could imagine what she was truly capable of. But they hadn't seen everything, not yet. Not until the final trial began. The final trial was meant to break them all. A live combat simulation. Blinks, smoke, explosions, but with the chaos real enough to cost lives if mistakes were made. It was a crucible designed not just to test skill, but to expose fear. The recruits advanced through the ruined training ground, a mock battlefield filled with shattered walls and burning wreckage. The air stank of cordite and dust. Orders flew in every direction, half heard, half lost. Confusion spread like fire. And then it happened. An ambush. Explosions ripped through the squad's flank. Smoke blinded the field. Recruits stumbled, screaming, weapons clattering into the dirt. One man was pinned beneath debris. Another froze, paralyzed by panic. The squad fractured in an instant, collapsing under the weight of chaos. The mocking voices, the same men who had sneered at her, were the first to falter. Fall back. We're done. And in that moment, when despair threatened to consume them, she moved. Not with hesitation, not with fear, with precision. She cut through the smoke, her body low, her movements sharp. She reached the pinned soldier first, prying the debris free with the strength of someone who had done this before. She hauled him up, shoved a weapon back into his hands, and snapped her command. Cover fire. Now, her voice, steady and ruthless, cut through panic like a blade. And for the first time, they obeyed without question. Rounds cracked in the air, suppressing the ambush. She surged forward, weaving through cover, every motion clean, lethal. While others fired blindly, she aimed with intent, each shot silencing an enemy position, each movement carving a path forward. The commander watched from the tower, his face tightening as the impossible unfolded. Because she wasn't just surviving. She was leading. In the chaos of smoke and fire, the recruits began to fall in line behind her. She directed them with clipped signals, no wasted words. They regrouped. They advanced. And the tide shifted. Then came the moment none would ever forget. An explosion hurled one recruit across the dirt. His leg was mangled, his screams echoing. The others froze, horror in their eyes. But she didn't hesitate. She sprinted into open fire, sliding across the ground, dragging him out with brutal efficiency. Bullets cracked overhead. She shielded him with her own body, teeth clenched, eyes cold. She got him out. Alive. The squad stared, breathless. The woman they had mocked as weak had just risked everything to save one of their own. And then, like lightning, the realization struck them. She wasn't just another recruit. She wasn't just enduring the fire. She was commanding it. She led the counter-assault herself. Through ruined alleys, over shattered walls, each step calculated. Her hands reloaded faster than thought. Her eyes cut through the smoke, finding targets no one else could see. She fought not like a beginner, not like someone desperate to prove herself, but like someone who had already lived this war before. The recruits who once laughed were silent now, following her every order, their fear burned away by the certainty in her movements. And when the last enemy position fell, when the battlefield finally quieted, there was no laughter left. Only the ringing echo of what they had witnessed. The girl with the scar. The silent one. The unwanted one. She had turned their defeat into victory. And in that searing moment, as smoke drifted and silence pressed heavy, a single question tore through the minds of every soldier who had doubted her. After this, who would dare call her weak again? After this moment, who would ever dare call her fragile? Smoke thinned. The ringing in our ears softened into a charged, watchful silence. The squad stood in a broken crescent, faces streaked with soot, eyes locked on the woman they had once called Deadweight. She said nothing. She simply ejected her magazine, checked the chamber, holstered with that same calm precision, and waited. The commander descended from the tower. Each step he took sounded like a verdict. He stopped in front of her, studied the scar, the steady breath, the poise that no longer looked like defiance, but discipline. I felt the air tighten, the way a room tightens around a truth finally arriving. "State your designation," he said. Her voice was low, unflinching. "Blackbird 7. Something flickered in his gaze, recognition, calculation, maybe even a sliver of relief. Around us, confusion rippled like heat over asphalt. He took one pace back, heels together. The salute he gave was surgical, exact, impossible to misread. "Ma'am." The word hit harder than any explosion. The man she had dragged from the line of fire stared as if seeing her for the first time. The loudest mocker lowered his eyes, throat working around an apology that refused to become a sound. The squad's posture changed all at once, spine straightening, weapons cradled with new purpose, the group instinctively aligning to her center of gravity. I had suspected she was more than a recruit, but hearing the call sign was like a door being cracked open on a dark room. Blackbird 7 wasn't a rumor. It was a whisper in operations no one wrote down, a specter of missions signed in red and filed where daylight couldn't reach. She had not come here to be tested. She had come here to measure the ground under our feet. The commander spoke to the unit, voice stripped of theater. "You were led today by an operator whose service record is classified above my clearance. You owe her your lives. But more than that, you owe her your silence, your discipline, and your willingness to see past your own arrogance." He turned to her. "Permission to debrief you, ma'am." She gave a single nod, then looked not at him, but at the men. Not one speech. Not one lecture. Only a single, clean gesture. She raised her hand and returned to the commander's salute, then to the squad, eyes steady, the smallest acknowledgement of their shared ground. Respect felt different than admiration. Admiration is loud. Respect is quiet. It's the air after thunder, the certainty that remains when noise has burned away. I had seen mockery, then doubt, then fear. Now I saw something else, something we rarely admit we crave, a leader whose strength never demanded permission, only responsibility. When she finally spoke, it was not about heroics. "Debrief in 10. Check your wounded. Reset comms. We leave this place clean." And just like that, the unit moved, not out of obedience, but because order had been restored by someone who had carried chaos and returned it tamed. I watched the loudest skeptic approach her, helmet tucked under his arm. "I was wrong," he said, the words rough but honest. She inclined her head. No absolution, no triumph. Only acknowledgement. And in that small, controlled mercy, the unit learned the last lesson. True authority does not humiliate. It steadies. Do you want to know what unfolded after every truth finally stood in the open? We have all been there, in smaller battles with smaller stakes, watching someone be misjudged for a scar, a silence, a rumor. We feel the sting, the urge to turn away, the urge to conform to the chorus. But when the dust settles, strength reveals itself not in noise, but in steadiness. And respect is earned where eyes meet without flinching. You and I know this truth. We've seen it. We've felt it. And together, we can keep stories like this alive, the ones that cut through the easy laugh and the easy lie, and remind us what discipline, courage, and quiet mastery really look like. If this moved you, stay with us. Like the video so it travels farther than the ridicule ever did. Share it with someone who's been underestimated. Subscribe if you want more stories where the underdog does not beg to belong. She proves she was built to lead. Tell us in the comments, when was the last time you saw someone judged at a glance, and what changed your mind? Or, if that someone was you, what did it take to turn mockery into respect?